Eric Farnsworth is the Vice President of the America Society and Council of the Americas. He joins me now from Washington. Appreciate you being with us.
It's good to be with you, Rosemary.
So after nearly a decade in power, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau abruptly announced his resignation Monday. Why now? And what went so terribly wrong for Trudeau, do you think?
Well, you know, the announcement may have been abrupt, but this has been building for some time. The Liberals are deeply unpopular in Canada. They lost some important by-elections last June. Their coalition partners, the NDP, pulled out in September, and the caucus itself, the Liberal caucus itself, began to question Trudeau's leadership over the autumn. But I think the major precipitating event was really the resignation of Chrystia Freeland, who's the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. She resigned for a variety of reasons, but she left with a scathing letter that she made public, which really questioned the direction that Trudeau was taking the country, particularly as Donald Trump is set to be inaugurated south of the Canadian border here on January 20th. So the timing has been building for a while, but I think it just became clear that with elections that have to be held this year, the caucus itself was beginning to question whether Trudeau was the horse that they wanted to ride, and he was getting that message.
So how necessary is the resignation of Trudeau for Canada to move forward?
Well, a lot of people would say it's very necessary, but the way that it would normally be done he would call elections. I mean, elections, as I mentioned, have to be held this year by October, and the normal process would be he would call them and contest them. But what he's done is something that's slightly different. He's actually resigned as leader of the Liberal Party, but says that he'll remain as Prime Minister until the Liberals determine who their next leader will be and who the next prime minister would be. And that's really important because in doing so, he suspended their parliament, which means that the country is really put on hold politically until the Liberals decide their own intra-caucus politics. It's a really important scenario because the country is going through some important changes, not to say, again, the relationship is shifting with the United States. So as the country goes through some political instability, you're going to have a new prime minister, and then presumably you'll have to have a new election after that. So you could actually have 3 Canadian prime ministers this year, 2025. It's a process that really adds some instability north of the U.S. border.
So with that in mind, what impact will Trudeau's resignation likely have on the country once his replacement is selected in a few months? And who is best equipped to replace him?
Well, I guess it depends on who the Liberals put forward as his replacement, but the early commentary would suggest that indeed anybody who they do would try to broadly continue the same policies of the Trudeau administration, which have been rejected now by the Canadian populace. So the opposition Conservatives are polling at least 20 points ahead of the Liberals, and so if the election were held today, the Conservatives would most likely win handily. Nonetheless, you hear folks like Chrystia Freeland named as potential replacements for Trudeau. There are a number of others as well. We'll have to see how that works going forward, but at the end of the day, what the real shift is going to take place in the elections themselves when the Liberals and the other political parties will have to contest the Conservatives, who are clearly in the lead at this point.
And US President-elect Donald Trump is taking credit for Trudeau's resignation after his relentless attacks on the Canadian leader, along with his threat to impose new 25% tariffs. How big a part did Trump actually play in Trudeau's downfall, do you think?
Well, it's a really important question, but I don't think we can actually determine the answer. At the end of the day, politics are local, and Trudeau would have made the determination based on the support he had in his own caucus and more broadly among Canadians themselves. U.S. citizens and the U.S. president don't vote in Canada. But having said that, President-elect Trump clearly has made most of trolling Prime Minister Trudeau over the last several weeks and months. In a way that a number of people think are just jokes, but other people think are quite serious. And that is something that has diminished the Prime Minister in the public eyes and clearly caused some to question whether he had the political weight to be able to stand up to somebody like a Donald Trump in the face of such onslaughts, particularly, again, if the U.S. does go forward with 25% tariffs on Canadian products, that will really stress the Canadian economy, which is already in trouble, and that's in some ways why the Liberals are so unpopular. So this could simply compound the issues that Canadians are facing, and I think it's one reason why the Prime Minister decided that now is probably a time to bow out and let somebody else try to take the mantle.
Eric Farnsworth, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me. It's good to be with you.